but we're going to get things started. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jessica Chance, class of 2000. Welcome to Emerson Week. Excited to kick things off to talk about moving forward, moving upward with grad student alumni. So just to get things started, thank you. And also just to say this is about honoring the grad student experience and the graduate alumni community, which is full of a lot of people that have a ton of career stories and advice to give to the Emerson community. So just to kick things off, I want to introduce our lovely folks here with us this afternoon. First, we have Todd McNeil, I believe our most recent graduate from class of 2021, where he studied communication management and is currently at the Boston Lyric Opera. Thank you so much for being here, Todd. Melissa Bergstrom is from the class of 2012, where she studied theater education. And now she is back with Emerson College teaching at, let's see, both EC, Emerson College, and Mass Art. Next, we have Susanna Marcucci, and she's from the class of 2019 and studied communication management and is director of international students at Clark University. And last but not least, we have Narissa Williams-Scott. She's from the class of, and actually you have to let me know, Narissa, I am drawing a complete blank, but is the CEO and creative producer of TCGT, That Child's Got Talent. And she is currently teaching here at Emerson with the BCE 110 class, Intro to Creative Economy, and also a class in creative collaboration while running her own company. So thank you so much, Narissa. And Narissa graduated with a degree in the film production program here at Emerson. So thank you all for being here. And we are just going to get things started to really talk about this very important topic. And all of the lovely career questions. So give me just a second here. So the first question is, what was the catalyst for you beginning your program at Emerson College? And I guess we can start with Todd. Todd will begin. What was the catalyst for your decision to do the master's program at Emerson?
Yeah, so I had been on staff at Emerson. I worked in Arts Emerson as the marketing and communications fellow, which was my introduction to the program. I had moved to Boston originally to study opera at a conservatory in the city, but had needed to take a break and needed to make money in order to stay in Boston. And so I applied and got the fellowship. And then after 6 months of being in the fellowship with Arts Emerson, I was able to then start taking classes at Emerson. And so I had looked in the communications and in the marketing program and knew that the communications management had a public relations track, which I love scandal. I really wanted to be Olivia Pope. And so the program was great for me. And it was everything that I needed. I had started it and had taken a break for 2 years and then had come back during the pandemic to complete the last 10 hours of my coursework. Forever grateful to have started working and then have now been an Emerson graduate.
Right, thank you. Okay, and we'll just go in order. Whoever is next. I think Melissa.
So my Emerson story, I was in my mid-20s and I had studied theater performance and history as an undergraduate, super small liberal arts college in upstate New York, which was a great experience, but I always had on the back burner this desire to be in Boston specifically. I knew there was a lot of theater happening, a lot of art happening. And when I started looking at graduate programs, I knew that I didn't want to go for performance strictly. I really had this idea of my mind of almost like this mosaic. I want to do some community engaged work, which I had almost no experience in. I had been teaching theater, all kinds of ages the whole time that I had been acting. And I actually had a moment where I thought, I'm never going to find a program that meshes the two of them. And then I came upon Emerson's website and I ended up applying for the master's program. So I got certified to teach K through 12, but I also completed the track of the theater and community, which is community engaged arts and using it for social change. And really the sky's the limit when it comes to that. So I really felt like the luckiest person in the world to stumble upon that program. And then so I graduated with that in 2012. And during, well, actually, it was the tail end of 2019, I decided to come back for the MFA program, which they were going to try out for applied theater. It was only 2 more courses and a thesis. And I welcomed any opportunity to come back and not only teach at Emerson, but be a student again. So very lucky.
Yeah, it's really interesting to come full circle and be a student and then see other fellow students and like see that whole experience and how they respond to the academic experience and also what they want to do, you know,
Totally.
combining those 2 areas. So awesome. Susanna.
So it took me a while to get to grad school. So after my undergraduate, I lived abroad for about 4.5 years. I taught English. I love learning languages, connecting with different cultures, and found my way to Emerson as my first job back from being abroad, and realized, okay, what's next? I do need to get my master's degree, and loved being at Emerson, and felt that the master's in communication management was really broad enough for me to explore a lot of different things as I was kind of early in my career, and fit in with being at Emerson. I love being there as a staff member, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to become a student as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. And Narissa.
Can you just
And
say the
also
question
tell
for
us.
me?
Oh, say it again. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the question for me just one more time.
Oh,
so I
sure,
can make
sure.
sure that I'm saying the right thing.
Definitely, definitely. And I actually kind of paraphrase. I'm looking at the question again. So what informed your decision / catalyst to get your master's degree at Emerson? And because I forgot your graduation year, tell us your class year too.
Oh, 2015.
2015. Okay, my bad.
Yes. Don't I look like a young one?
Yes. timeless looking.
Anyway, I decided the catalyst that turned me to the MFA program. Well, I reached a midpoint in my career because I am an older person, and my mom always taught me. I come from a family of educators, so my mother always told me, when you really don't know what to do, go back to school. And so I know what I love to do, which is make movies and produce live events. And so I knew that I should probably think about maybe getting a film degree. I already have a performing arts degree for live events and theater. So I was like, well, why not? And so I came back to Boston and started working at Emerson in the VMA, well, not the VMA, in the MPC department at the film sound stage. And while I was there, I was like, oh, I can get my master's. Cool. And so I just decided to go ahead and get my master's so that I could teach, because, you have to take those pedagogy classes in order to be able to teach. And so that was it for me, because as you get older, you realize you have to start slowing down a little bit. And teaching is that for me. I love teaching.
Yeah, it's finding that pace. And something too about, age. It's like people are at different stages of their career. And it took me 5 years before I decided to even think about going back to school. And Susanna, you had mentioned something about it took you a long time. And so it's not always like right after undergrad. For some people, it's like 5 to 10 years that, before they go back to school. And so more power to the seasoned professionals, as we are going to call it.
It took me 17 years.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that is that. And that's when you've put some thought into it. You've had life experience. And like you said, like what your mother was saying, like, if you don't know what you want to do, like keep learning, go back to school. So awesome. And actually, this is a good segue into the next question. There are career changes of all levels of experience at Emerson in our programs. What were some of the ways you got as much on the ground experience as possible when working on your degree? Because Susanna, I'm thinking about the fact that you were working here at Emerson while you were working on your degree, and even some of my colleagues, a shout out to them who are working on their master's while they're working at the Career Center. So what was some of that like for all of you, sort of that parallel experience of, okay, in the class and then, get your hands in there? And Todd, I'll point to you again. Or Narissa, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was really tired. I mean, that was the first thing I wasn't prepared for, was the amount of tired I was going to feel, because trying to work a full-time job, you have responsibilities in that full-time job, and then you have to turn around and have full-time responsibilities for a full-time degree. It was a lot. It was a lot to sacrifice. I had to sacrifice hanging out with friends and having a social life. That had to go away completely. Well, I won't say completely, but almost.
A little bit of it, just a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, no, for me, it was, I'm a social butterfly. Like, I love to be around people. And I was like, I
You're
just
like,
don't.
no.
People are like, where have you been? And I was like, I'm working. I'm in school. I got a lot
Yeah.
going on. And so it was difficult in that way. But because I worked at the school where I was getting my degree, it was beneficial, because I was able to be engaged in the classroom setting, but also being able to utilize the resources of the college exponentially, because of the fact that I worked there and I was in school there. And it was just like, I literally was the Emerson bubble that we laugh and talk about, but I was that
Yeah.
Emerson bubble. And it was honestly, it was really great, because had I not been actually working at the school where I attended, I think it would have taken me a little bit longer to get that degree.
Yeah, no, definitely. And to what you were saying, the saying is always, the struggle is real, the juggle is real. You know, I think the first time I understood the definition of self-care was in grad school, because it does take a lot out of you, and you have to pay attention to how do you juggle that student experience, being a parent, daughter, child, being an intern, full-time worker, all of it. You know, it's a lot. So that you got to take care of yourself. So, all right. So who would like to go next? You don't have to go in perfect order.
I'll jump in, because something that you said, Narissa, really resonated with me, like that sense of just like there's so much, it's so full. And you know, Jessica, when you said like self-care piece, I mean, I think that one of the benefits of me having waited, goodness, I guess it was like 6 years to go to grad school between undergrad and starting Emerson was suddenly, you're, not to say that you're not a whole person as an undergraduate, but my undergraduate experience, you know, I lived in the dorms. It was kind of all encompassing. I didn't have a full-time job outside of it. And so it was kind of like, okay, I can just focus totally on this. And I think being there for 2012, it was overwhelming in some really good ways, because it was trying to not only, I think, be engaged in the graduate program with theater ed, but also I had just moved to Boston 2 weeks before I started. So I had this idea in my mind of trying to balance, okay, I want to be really present here for the coursework, but I also want to create community both within the program, which I'm so grateful for even today. I can't tell you how many collaborations and things like that have come from that. But it was also a sense of I'm in a new to me city. And so how do I balance I'm in a classroom, but I also want to take this outside the classroom, literally into the city, and like, let me test this out. Let me try this out. Do I like this? And I think that continued with me with the MFA program too, because I, as you said, Narissa, I was working full time, and kind of, you know, the juggle and the struggle, all of that, so real, especially during the pandemic. So I did some of it on Zoom. But I think that one of the things I really appreciated about the theater education graduate program is they were very vocal and explicit about saying, you're a whole person. You're a whole person, you know, you might work, you might have a family. Even if it's just you in your apartment, you have a life outside of this course, you know, like, so I think that was something that I really found very beneficial, and I try to really take with me.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Thank you. Because it's like you're so busy and entrenched in the work, and having the like-minded people around you, like you said, to collaborate with is so important, because the grad experience can be isolating because you're so entrenched. But every program sort of has its own culture within it, you know, which is great. So, okay, Susanna or Todd, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I love that the juggle is real. I hadn't heard that before. That
I
was
just made that up. So
okay. Well, you should trademark it. That's great. Yeah, I mean, it really. I was also raising a toddler when I started grad school and working, so it was really tough But
Mhm.
I also just loved grad school because it was like me time. And I
Yeah.
could put those other identities aside and just be a student and engage intellectually. And I intentionally chose a program that wasn't really directly related to the daily tasks of my job. You know, I could have done like a student affairs degree or higher education leadership or something like that. And I didn't really want to do that because I was doing that every day. And the program at Emerson really allowed me to explore lots of my other interests in intercultural communication and political communication, and just really you know, try on these other hats and engage in research. And I just really, really loved that. And really loved the connections I got to make, that it was kind of my night out, because honestly, I wasn't going out. I didn't have a social life like as a young mom, you know, but then I was
Yeah.
like, well, I have class, then I can go out after class, you know, occasionally with, you know, my other students, the other students. And it was just a really, really special experience.
That's so
Sure.
true. There's a special kind of nourishment that you get that's like, this is all mine, you know, when you're in those grad classes. And I remember meeting your daughter. She was so adorable.
Yeah, she's all grown up now.
I know. Oh my God. So Todd, what are your thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, I was going to say, what I loved about the program is that it was directed to the work I was doing day to day. I, in undergrad, was a double major in musical theater and communications, but musical theater was very demanding. And so I feel like I kind of like charmed my way through the communications degree, but didn't really learn those like hard skills. And so I knew social media, I knew website, I knew like basic stuff. And had done some like marketing internships, but this was the first time where I could give it my all and focus and not have to juggle both degrees. And so I felt like I had really grown up and had really learned a lot, and was able to use the skills that I was using in the classroom at night, and then, you know, use them in my day job the next day. And so was able to take photography classes and some like videography classes and graphic design. I think the Emerson really laid the foundation and sort of set me up for success. And I look back, and like, I am naturally a creative, but having been in the political comm classes, or Susanna, the really hard class we took that Spencer teaches, that's like all data and analytics. I cannot remember the name of that class.
Polling.
Hmm?
Yeah,
Oh, the
survey
polling
research.
class. Yeah. And so
That was
I
my
had,
favorite class.
oh my gosh, it was really hard for me. I really worked hard in
Somewhere
that class.
Spencer's ears are itching. Just for
um, but being able to learn basically audience behavior and why people make the customer journey and why people react or behave in the ways that they do, and then allowing that to sort of impact the creative that I make. So now as a senior marketing manager, it's like, okay, I can make all these fun designs, but the overall goal is to have subscriptions or to get butts and seats. And so it's like being able to measure and analyze the creative that I make. And then that sort of helps navigate what other creative projects are in place moving forward. So a lot of hard skills that I learned in that program.
Great. Well, actually, it's a great segue into actually the next question, because a lot of students will enter a master's degree. And I even remember when I was in graduate school thinking, okay, I know that I want to be a counselor and help people in some capacity, but what are the key skills that I, Jessica, need to develop? And so all of us have sort of that unique area. And a word that I heard a lot, which may be out of style at this point because things are changing so rapidly, whether it's career or industry, but the phrase of leveling up. So what would you say leveling up in your career means to you, and what role or particular class, because you all mentioned the survey class, like what role your program played in those specific skill sets that you sort of carved and created for yourself when you were, going back out into the working world?
That is a very compact question.
I am notorious for questions like that. Feel free to
Yeah.
pick and choose.
so I'm going to paraphrase and say it back to you, make sure I understand. It's basically you want to know what we experienced in leveling up that our degree helped us with.
Exactly.
Okay.
So whether it's because
I could say that well, my degree was it was about education. Well, it's a threefold question, honestly, because there's the education portion of it. I gained more knowledge. I gained more, my brain became another resource for me, right? It became something that I was able to utilize in order to say, "Oh, I learned that in directing class," or, "Oh, I know exactly what that DP is talking about because I didn't know what an 85 millimeter lens was before the program." You know what I mean? So the education helped in that way, in ways that I didn't even realize it would help. But once you got back out into the workforce, you're like, "Oh, I know what that means," you know? And so there was that. And then the experience of working with other people in the major at the time, we're still in communication to this day. Like I still talk to all of the people, and I don't want to say all, let me not exaggerate, but I still talk to a good number of the people who were in the program while I was in the program, whether it be the year I got there all the way through to the year I graduated. Like if you're in the program, you're in the program, and you meet everyone who's in the program at some point. And so you develop relationships, bonds, things of that nature. And so that has helped me also tremendously, because I work with some of the people that I was in the program with, which is I'll call up, Emily in a heartbeat. Emmy, I need you. She's like, "Oh, what are we doing?" And it's very cool. And then I would say the other leg to that, that helped me to level up, it gave me a sense of clout when I went and presented myself before organizations or potential clients. I own my own business. So, and we're a production-based business. And so I all I had to say was, "Oh, well, I graduated from Emerson. I've gotten jobs just because I went to Emerson." Like they didn't even really talk to me. They knew I went to Emerson. They knew the prestige of the school. They knew that if you came out of the school, you had to have something about yourself. And so therefore it was like, I literally had to simply say that. And people were like, "Okay." And I got jobs. So yeah, the Emerson experience, I leveled up considerably because of getting that master's. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome, especially that the three-part breakdown, and something that to really reiterate to folks watching this, and thinking about that community piece, is the people that you're with, that you're in classes with, that you're working with, even they are currently in your network, and to what Larissa was saying about the relationships and the bonds. You don't necessarily have to call it networking, but even going on to our Emerson site like Emerge, like you can start that relationship building or reconnecting with people that were in your grad program. So just a reminder, about that. So thank you for sharing that, Narissa. Melissa, I saw your screen come up.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna do the cliche theater thing and say yes, and because so much of what you said, Narissa, really resonated with me, because when I think of what I got from Emerson, it's absolutely, as you said, it's the hard skills. I got the skills, I got the experience, and that community piece for me is so key. I've and I'm just, Jessica, when you said the networking thing, I think it's about finding the language that works for you. And so even when you said leveling up, in my mind, I was like, "Oh, I have this image of kind of climbing higher and higher." But for me, I actually think of it as the opposite. I think of deepening relationships and putting down roots. And that is what Emerson helped me to do. Not only with different organizations in the city that I got to know when I was in the program, but that community piece. And I am still in touch. Honestly, it's like 6 or 7 people from my program that I keep in touch with on a regular basis. Everything from literally, celebrating the birth of their baby, to being at their wedding, to I taught a virtual class for a super small liberal arts college in North Carolina this semester, that a dear friend of mine from Emerson is now the head of the program. So it's this sense that you're not alone. And I think that the graduate experience can be lonely. And when you leave, it can be lonely because you're kind of nestled in this wonderful community. And it can feel like almost like you're, I don't know, skydiving or something afterwards. Like, I'm going to take this leap. And we all are doing things on our own. And there are people there around us that want to help, that want to support. Because I certainly feel that way about the people that I'm in touch with at Emerson. If there's anything that I can do to kind of support and make them feel that they're still part of that community, I think that that's really huge. And I don't think I could have gotten that. I know I couldn't have gotten that without the program. That's just me. But I can't imagine.
I like what you all are saying about like finding the word that works for you, because you don't have to call it network. Sometimes I'll call it relationship building, that's another phrase, but climbing, deepening, bonding, like there's a lot that we can use that works for us. Because I think sometimes when we talk about our careers and when a lot of our students and our alum are networking, they think there's one packaged way to talk about how to connect, to talk about how to promote themselves. And there's a lot of different ways, and finding the language that works for you really matters. So yeah. Susanna, I was thinking about the work that we used to do together. I'm trying to, think back the pre-COVID before times, when you worked at the International Student Office and some of the collab that we got to do. And so it's just great to see where you are now. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts about what leveling up or something else entirely, however you want to phrase it, means to you.
Yeah, thanks. I know so much has changed since we
I
last met together, which is awesome. And I think all of these things are true that everyone else has mentioned. I think for me, my degree from Emerson gave me confidence. And that was huge, I think, as a woman in trying to, move up the ladder. And I think I'm in a little bit of a different industry. I'm not in the arts. And we really do need that piece of paper to move up. To get paid more, to get better titles, to take on leadership roles. So that check the box, right, with the piece of paper, but also having confidence and developing myself intellectually and really gaining critical thinking skills. I mean, I think back to my degree at Emerson all the time. It helps me in my work when I'm thinking about managing conflicts and sort of how people communicate either with my team and, understanding how my organization works and how to function successfully in an institution of higher education. Those are skills I really got from my communications degree. And I've had one other thought. I think the other thing, I got to do through my grad degree that's really helped me is just really try things. So I got to present my research at a couple of conferences, and that was huge. And now, it's a breeze doing conference sessions for the professional association that I'm involved in. Nice. It was like those training wheels, right? To get me going and to feel like, okay, I can do this and I can make a difference. And that class, I think about that polling class, Todd, a lot because, when we think about, okay, what programming are we going to plan for our international students? Okay, well, now I know how to find out what they want, how to, how to do a survey, how to think about public opinion or student opinion, more specifically within my role. So even though it wasn't a direct relationship, it really sort of opened up my mind and, my capacity as a professional.
Yeah, well, it's sort of the two things. It's the actual core skills that you might need, like you said, like the marketing, communication, how to reach students, which it feels like sometimes every day it's different, as far as what platform, what technology, what's going to reach the students, but then also, you had mentioned, being a woman, getting confidence, and it is 2022. We talk a lot about, inclusion, equity, and, what it means for different people, like women of color are going to have a different experience with career development versus men, or, it's different in a lot of ways. And I think one of the goals within a lot of our grad programs is helping students of all different backgrounds define what does leadership look like. For me, there's not one way to be a leader. And it sounds like you touched on that a little bit, which is awesome. Thank you. And Todd, you had mentioned this already a little bit, that the hard skills, photography, I think, what was something else you mentioned? Some of the, graphic design. And you kind of kicked off this question here. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that? I thought
Yeah,
it
I
was,
can.
you mentioned the, I think, what was it? Charmed your way
Yeah,
the first time
yeah.
around. And then the second time, you're like, okay, let me dig in there and get some hard skills.
Yeah, I think that the program, to speak what Susanna said, it gave me confidence as a communicator and as an intellectual, because up until then, I think that I was always like, oh, well, I'm an opera singer, or I studied musical theater. So like, of course I know how to communicate and convey a message, but this degree actually gave me the clout, as Narissa had shared, and it gave me those hard skills. So I no longer need to say, oh, because I have a degree in musical theater and opera, of course I know how to communicate. No, now I have a degree in communications management, and also just the confidence as an intellectual. I had taken time off and then had come back to finish the program, and then had ended up winning the Graduate Student Communications Award at graduation. And
Actually,
it was the
yeah.
first time in years that I had ever been recognized for anything academically. Theater and music awards for sure, but I don't think I've ever received an academic award. And so that meant a lot. And was working at Boston Magazine at the time, and was one of few people of color on the staff, and had joined the EDI task force at Boston Magazine. And so got to do my thesis, really examining why, a city magazine's workforce does not reflect the city that it serves, or why does it only cater to a certain type of, or a certain audience in Boston. And then like, this is a direct reflection because they're mostly white people on staff. And so how do you have a, diversity and inclusion initiative if you only have 3 or 4 people of color on the staff? And so got to do my communications thesis on that. And then, like I said, ended up winning the communications grad award. And so that helped me get a promotion, that helped me get a raise, but it really just was like, oh, I am smart. So it was a great experience.
Yes, thank you. It's like the seeing your hard work when someone's like recognizes it, that's awesome. So, and actually I want to give you all the opportunity at this point to sort of talk directly to the students, through this conversation. And again, it's sort of another good segue, because we've talked a little bit about that leadership component. And, our undergrad students are figuring that out. And our grad students, I think, are at thinking about it a little bit more closely, because they've had a few years of experience, or 5, 10, 17 years, or maybe they touched on it a little bit in undergrad, and they're just now entering these grad programs saying, okay, how do I lead, initiate, outreach, all of those things? So, what advice would you give to current grad students learning about how to be leaders? What sort of advice would you give when they think about, the guiding, the role modeling, even the initiative, being on a task force, or something else entirely? Because like I was saying earlier, it looks different for everybody.
I would say, okay, so the question is what does it mean to be a leader?
Yeah. And like what it means to be a leader, and how they can do it for themselves. Like if a student were to come to you and say, what does this leadership mean? Like, how do I, embody that, or what does it look like?
I say to my students, because I breed leaders. Like I breed them. They're you come to my class, I'm putting you in leadership. Like, I don't care if you want to be in it or not. Like, you're going to be in leadership because it's what's expected, like that is the Emersonian way. Like, you You go into a space very humble, ready to learn, ready to be antiquated in the experience, but you go in there knowing that you are going to take that lead. You are going to be that leader. But I would say to people who are getting into leadership that you have to know who you're leading. And so sometimes you need to be led first so that you understand what it means to be in that space, to be that leader. For people who are mid-career or changing their career after being in a certain role for some amount of time, I encourage my mid-career folk to go in and listen before you go in and speak, and let everyone in the space know that they're being heard. Because
Yes,
just because you're listening doesn't mean that the people speaking feel heard.
exactly.
So those are things that I push out on my students when we talk about leadership, because I'm a business owner, so I have to be a leader, and
Yeah.
it's difficult. You have to be empathetic at the right time, and you don't always get the second chance. You have to be open all the time and also guard your heart. You have to not take it personal, but understand that it's not always business. So finding your own line, I
Yeah.
think is it's imperative. Finding out, like, knowing what it is that you hold the most important and sticking to that is going to take you further.
Definitely. That line is so important. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Leadership,
Yeah.
other thoughts.
It's interesting because I think for me, I keep coming back to like the language around leadership, because if you had asked me, am I going to graduate school to be a leader, I would have said no. You know, I'm an introvert. I'm really comfortable being part of a team. I love to contribute. I'm not always comfortable leading, which is funny because I'm an educator. And I
Exactly. Yeah.
think that so much of that around the definition of leadership came from Emerson, because, you know, there was a really wonderful balance of theory and practice in the program when I was there. And this is still true of the program. And so, you know, even Narissa, what you said, like, if you're, you know, you're coming to this room to learn and I'm going to kind of toss you in and you're going to lead. There was a lot of opportunities to do that. That was actually required in a lot of those experiences when I was there. And I try to do the same for my students. And the way that I think I maybe negotiate my own resistance to leadership, or try to offer this to someone else who might be feeling the same way, is language. You know, to me, if I think of a leader, I think of someone that's, you know, I don't know, in a suit and has a lot of power and has a lot of money and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I think for me, when I started to switch it in my mind and say, is there something I feel really excited about? Is there something I feel that I have to share? Is there something that I could maybe model for someone else to spark a fire for them? And to me, that's become my own definition of being a leader. And if I look at it that way, the answer is always yes. It doesn't mean I feel 100% confident all of the time. It doesn't mean I never feel like an imposter, but at the end of the day, I do this even now. If I have, you know, kind of an experimental day in the classroom and I step away and go, oh boy, what happened there? You know, was that, I kind of step back and just go, okay, did I share something meaningful? Do I think did I make space for people to kind of discover something that they hadn't maybe discovered before or thought about in a different way? And if I'm honest, it can be very messy. And that answer is usually yes. I usually kind of walk away going, at the very least, I think I offered something, shared something, modeled something that feels meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And that for me, for some reason, again, with the language, it just takes a little bit of the pressure off, and I find more confidence that way.
We're definitely conditioned to look at leadership from this one lens. Like, I'm an introvert too, and so it's like extrovert, loud, you know, like talkative, and leadership comes out in so many different ways. Like you all mentioned, I think you mentioned the honesty, reflection, what just happened, you know, taking a temperature, being empathic. What you were saying, Narissa, knowing who you're leading and not just listening, but the active listening. And so all of those things are like, I think about like key bullet points of like, leadership 101, but making it work for you. So that's awesome. Did I interrupt someone? I think I heard someone about to say something.
I was just gonna jump in, and I love all of that. I'm also an introvert, and I love, Melissa, what you kind of said about like leadership doesn't have to look like one thing, and kind of talking about helping folks develop their potential. And so when I think about, okay, who are the leaders that I admire, they're more like mentors, right? So like mentorship as leadership, right? Working with someone else to help them discover who they are and become their fullest self. And those are the folks that have meant a lot to me over the years, that have spent time with me in one-on-one situations, and really helped me develop as a person. And so I think, when I'm working with my team and I have, some young professionals that, that work for me, I think about, okay, what's their style? What do they need? How do they like to be communicated with? How can I bring them along? And sort of responsive leadership, right? And helping move folks based on the way that they like to be motivated, which I don't get it right a lot of the time, but I'm trying and working on that. And then helping, folks find what they're interested in. So, I have to make sure at the end of the day that my team gets the job done and that we're meeting all of the demands put upon us by the institution, but then what else, is available for opportunities for my team to have other experiences that would foster their personal growth, and professional growth. So that's kind of what I think about, with my team, because I don't work so one-on-one with students anymore. So that's been a little bit of a shift with, being in a director role.
It's like a different kind of supporting. It's just that's a different way of looking at it. So great, thank you. And Todd, any thoughts around the leadership piece for you?
Yeah. I, in my current position and realizing, I've had been working so hard, just like I now I now run a department, but I realize I sort of miss managing projects and not people. And so I'm to be fully transparent, I thought like, oh, I'm going to be a great boss. And I've worked really hard for this, but it's actually like the least favorite part of my job. And one thing that I got to do while I was at Emerson as a fellow is I was the manager of the interns, but it more so felt like a mentorship. And so I loved helping those juniors or seniors sort of figure out what their talents or their gifts was, and sort of speaking life into them. And as Susanna had said, like responsive leadership. And to this day, that class of interns that I managed are great friends of mine. And it's funny because I was a few years older than them at that time. And now they're out of school or in law school, working at BuzzFeed or Sony. And so it's just nice to have been a part of their journey.
Yeah.
But I very much loved being a mentor, but I don't like having people report to me. And so that's actually something that I'm trying to rearrange in my job right now. Is I would rather lead projects, help start initiatives. I can be a part of a mentorship program, but I don't want to do the weekly one-on-ones. I don't want to have the hard conversations about why people are not performing well or meeting expectations, but I would rather partner and collaborate, and just make sure people feel seen and heard and valued, and however I can reach back and help them. So that's sort of what I think of leadership now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're finding the way that it works best for you in the job that you're going to be doing day to day. And, for folks out there, itching to be a mentor or just want to offer support, guidance, reframe things around career and help out current students, grad or undergrad, again, Emerge is a really, really awesome place to do that, for alum kind of feeling that, mentorship itch. But there's a great question in the chat. So for all of you, what advice would you give recent graduates pursuing a communications career in a time where COVID has made the job search even more difficult than usual? So quite a meaty question there. Does anybody want to take a stab at it?
Well, I'm hiring right now, so this is on my mind.
There are openings out there, folks.
Yeah. And it's so funny actually, because I feel like as a hiring manager, it's been so hard to find good people right now. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if there's just a mismatch and the people are out there and I'm not finding them, or what it is. But I mean, a couple of practical things like just customize your cover letters. Um, make sure your resume is free of typos. Jessica, all your bread and butter stuff, right?
Oh yes, preaching to the choir. I'm nodding over here.
Um, and then the other thing, and this goes back to when I was first trying to get my job originally at Emerson, was trying to do informational interviewing. And I think talking to folks is so helpful, especially if you're a new grad and you're not quite sure what you want to do, kind of have spread a broad net and talk to lots of different kinds of people. And on the flip side, the pandemic has made it easier because we're all used to talking on Zoom, so you could connect with lots of different people that are in lots of different locations. And whenever someone's approached me about having a career conversation, I always say yes. I'm always happy to talk to someone. And so I think just putting yourself out there and identifying some folks who have jobs you might be interested in, and you have some type of a connection with, like they're a fellow Emerson alum, something like that, and having those conversations can be really, really helpful and help you learn more about what opportunities interest you. And when you know more about these opportunities, you're going to come off much more articulate and interesting as a candidate in those interviews.
Yes. Great.
I would also say that I agree with that tremendously. I think that you have to, for someone, okay, how do I say this? In some ways, you have to give your best foot forward. And sometimes people think that means that you just have to be at the right place at the right time. And I feel that you have to put yourself out there at the right time. And so if you know that you're ready, right, to be gainfully employed, and that you want to work for a particular company or a particular sector of a field, for example, like, because communications is everybody has a communications department. And so if you know that you want to work in clean energy, or or you want to work in making barbecue for restaurants, I don't know, but whatever it is that you want to do, make sure that you're ready to be employed. And then also make sure that you put yourself into the circle where these people can be found, so that you go to, if you want to go out and be personable, or you reach out to maybe someone on LinkedIn and say, hey, I see that you have the job that I aspire to have one day. How did you get it? You have to be willing to talk to people. Going back to this networking thing, you have to be willing to talk to people. To sit behind a computer screen and just click on keys and type things and not have an actual human interaction is not to say that you can't get a job that way, but it's going to take you longer and it's going to be a lot harder. And it may even be more difficult for you to continue to keep that job, because what you thought what it was when reading it is not the same as actually having that human interaction.
Yeah, definitely. And it's an interesting time, because I think with Zoom and that relationship building piece, there's the Zoom fatigue is real. That was a thing like almost a year ago, is the Zoom fatigue. But how do you also make these conversations interesting? Because it's less about saying, hey, we both went to Emerson, let's talk. It's about, I'm looking for jobs in these particular areas. This is where I'm at in my career now, and these are the skills I want to use. That's much more specific, and it shows. You use the word ready, Narissa. We use the word career readiness, which we don't know if it sticks or not. It's a common phrase in the career center, but the career readiness is key. Is like, are you ready to be employed and get yourself out there and not be isolated in front of your laptop all the time, because that can get really lonely and it'll take a lot longer. So yeah, just echoing that. Todd, were you going to say something?
Yeah, and I kind of just wanted to add to what we've already heard, is also just not being, once your resume and cover letter are good, once you feel that you're ready to be fully employed, not being afraid to apply for jobs if you don't think you hit every single mark on the job description.
Mhm.
In fact, I actually encourage it. And I've seen a lot of places recently where they're like, women and people of color, we often feel like, oh, I don't meet every single description. I don't have every single skill within this job description. Maybe I shouldn't apply. But there are other people that never have to think about that. And so that's been one thing that I've been telling myself as I have applied for jobs over the last like years or few months, is like, I can do like 80% of this job. And I think the rest of it I can sort of learn while in the position. So I'm going to not count myself out, and I'm going to go ahead and apply for this position. And during the pandemic, I've made sure that if I've seen a place that I've been interested in applying at, if they have that sort of disclaimer at the bottom of like, do not count yourself out.
Mhm.
If you feel that this position works for you and is aligned with your skill set and your beliefs, we encourage you to apply. So yeah, don't count yourself out.
Absolutely. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Melissa?
Very, very briefly, I've been thinking a lot about that idea, Todd, when I've applied for jobs. And interestingly enough, one of my day jobs before I really like settled into teaching was at a recruitment company, a search company. And being on the other side of that, it's true. It's all of the wish list. It's, hey, we would love if this person had these 25 things. And I was literally in the room when they would go, let's be realistic, we're probably only going to get half, and that would be awesome. So it has totally changed the way I think about it. And the phrase I always use with myself when I see something that looks interesting, make them tell me no. I'm not going to say no to myself. I'm going to make you tell me that I can't do this job. And that confidence to say, oh, there's 20% I've never done. I've thought the same thing. And I'll go, I've learned a lot that I didn't know before. I can do that. You know, I think bringing that energy, I think it really does make a difference in those conversations. And that's, if I get hired for a job too, where I know it's a little bit of a stretch for me, and I've been open and authentic about that, and they say, we want you here, then I actually go in feeling more confident, because I go, oh, that's awesome. So they value someone that wants to learn and wants to stretch. Whereas if it's like, no, we're not interested in that, then that's probably not a place I want to be either, honestly.
Yeah. Y'all are like the empowerment squad. This is awesome. This is great. Thank you all. So I want to be aware of time, and there's a few questions here, a few more from the audience. So I guess I'm going to pick here. What do you wish you had known before you entered your master's program? So is there anything that you would do differently with that information, if what you had known before you entered it? And I'll let any of you go as the spirit moves you.
Well, I think, oh man, it's so hard to answer that question, because hindsight's always 2020, but at the end of the day, you learn so much. Like the wisdom in me, because again, I'm old, the wisdom in me recognizes that every single thing that you go through is for a reason. Yes. Whether you notice it at that moment, whether you figure it out 5 years later, or whether it doesn't resonate until 10 years later. At some point, whatever you're going through in your life, in your program, going for that degree, you're going to utilize it in some way. You just don't know it immediately.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As soon as I graduated, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make this. I'm going to make that. I'm going to have all this. And it didn't happen. And I was like, so bummed. I was like, man, what did I do wrong? But the reality is that the things that I actually worked on and did the work for to get that degree, I was able to use some of that for a reel. And it didn't even dawn on me that I needed that for a reel to show people this is what I produced. And because of that reel, it helped me to build more films, and it helped me to build my reel, and I kept growing and growing. But if I hadn't started, and if I hadn't really, like, I had this idea of grandiose, but it didn't happen. But the reality is that I needed that seed. I recognize it now, because I'm I'm 3 years shy of of 10 years ago, having gotten the degree, but I'm recognizing that that seed of me making those films is what puts me in a place where I'm about to produce a major motion picture for the first time ever. So it was like, yeah, I mean, at the moment, it didn't feel like, it felt like it was like, oh God, why did I do this? But now I'm like, oh yeah, God,
like, okay,
yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
Totally
I get it
yeah.
now. Exactly. So I simply say that there is, to me, and this is just me, but I feel like there is no, oh, I messed up, or oh, I could have done exactly the way I did it, and it made me who I am right here, right now.
Yeah. Got it.
That's how I look at it.
That's so true. We have an idea in our minds and it's totally different in reality. And it takes that time to have that hindsight. And I want y'all to sort of hold your thought, anything you want to add to that from that question. But we do have a really good question from Michelle. She mentions, for older alum, established professionals, do you think it's true that today it's an employee's market, as employers really need good hires? So can we really be pickier these days if you haven't covered? Okay. We talked about it just a tad, but not quite that specific of a question. Is it an employee's market? I know, Susanna, you mentioned there are positions out there. It's just, that getting rid of that mismatch, finding the matches. So does anybody want to sort of help answer Michelle's question?
I mean, I can only speak to higher education and so my industry, and also, I'm in Worcester too, so there's fewer folks out here, but I think yes, in general, yes. It is an employee's market in general, but again, it would depend on the specifics of your situation.
Yes, yes. And I do think, it's the great resignation is real. A lot of shuffling, a lot of people changing positions. So there's a lot of organizations out there thinking about how do we attract new talent and keep them. And so, to second, what Susanna was saying. Anything else? Any other additional thoughts about Michelle's question or the previous question about what you had known, what information that you wish you knew before you entered your program?
The only thing that I would add briefly to about, kind of looking back about what I wish I would have known, I think it was less about the program itself and more about that, like, almost, I would say, sacred time afterwards. Because I think I had this idea of like, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to, get all this experience, build this community, and then I'm just going to go out and do the thing. And I look back, I have such compassion for myself because I wasn't even out 6 months and I was like, I should be doing something exciting. I should be like, I should be making things happen. And I look back and I'm like, oh, wow, that was such a precious time because it was almost like I had this experience and I had to reflect on it. And so for me, being an artist, I've had more day jobs than I can count. And I think I wish I had kind of just given myself a little more permission to say, all right, we waited 6 years to go to grad school. Okay, we just had that 2-year immersive experience. It's actually okay if it takes a little bit of time to say what next.
Yeah, take it in.
Okay. Yeah. And I think some of like the most fascinating people that I think are doing really meaningful, cool stuff, many of which are from Emerson alum. It's like the twists and the turns. And then I tried this and then I backed off for a while and then I paused and then I went for it. Those are the stories that really, I think, inspire me. And so to give yourself that permission and just give yourself that compassion. It's a lot to take in and it's great. And it's worthy of processing and worthy of kind of taking the time for.
Absolutely. Totally. Well, it is 4:02. We've gone 2 minutes over. I feel like we just got warmed up. We could talk for a whole other hour about this. But what y'all shared today was incredible. Thank you so much. I hope all of you are in Emerge to continue parts of this conversation, to be the incredible mentors and educators I know you are, and leaders too. So thank you so much for representing our incredible alumni. And thank you all out there for your questions and joining us this afternoon.